Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. In this exciting journey through the pages of the Bible, we will explore the captivating story of Dinah, the only daughter mentioned in the story of Jacob and his 12 sons. Join us as we unravel the details of his life, a story that is full of intrigue, improvement and transformation. Dinah, an often overlooked figure in biblical narrative, is presented as a brave and curious young woman who faces challenges unique to her time. His story is found in the book of Genesis, and although his role is brief, his impact is profound. We will discover how Dinah, being kidnapped by Prince Shechem, unleashed a series of events that put her family at a cultural and moral crossroads. We will explore how his brother's reaction to this incident changed the course of his destiny and caused a transformation in the family dynamic. Throughout her journey, Dinah faces challenges of identity, tradition, and revenge. We will look at how her story reflects issues of gender and power, as well as the importance of justice and forgiveness in an ancient society. The story of Dinah and Prince Shechem is a pivotal moment in the biblical narrative, revealing a series of events that deeply affected Jacob's family and raised cultural and moral challenges. Dinah, Jacob's only mentioned daughter, was kidnapped by Shechem, the prince of the city of the same name. This act unleashed a storm of unexpected consequences. Shechem, deeply in love with Dinah, wanted to marry her. However, he took the initiative to kidnap her, which triggered the indignation and anger of Dinah's brothers. The situation created a cultural crossroads because it represented a clash between two worlds, the nomadic culture of Jacob and the sedentary society of Shechem. Values and customs were different in both groups. For Shechem, the kidnapping could be interpreted as an act of love, while for Dinah's family, it was an outrage and an act of violence. This cultural difference generated tensions and misunderstandings that fueled the conflict. The moral dilemma was equally shocking. Dinah's brothers, led by Simeon and Levi, were outraged by Shechem's action. To restore their sister's honor and uphold the morals of their community, they devised a master plan. They tricked Shechem and his father, Hamor, into believing that they would agree to the marriage if all the men in the city were circumcised. However, once the men were weakened by the procedure, Dinah's brothers attacked and massacred all of Shechem's men, taking revenge for their sister's kidnapping. This act of revenge raised moral and ethical questions about justice and revenge. Was the response of Dinah's brothers proportional? Was it acceptable to use a religious act like circumcision to deceive and then commit violence? The story of Dinah and Shechem confronts readers with complex ethical dilemmas and the tension between justice and revenge. The conflict trigger. The kidnapping of Dinah by Shechem generated a cultural and social divide. Dinah came from a nomadic family and was subject to specific customs, while Shechem lived in a sedentary society with its own rules and traditions. This incident highlighted how cultural differences could lead to misunderstandings and conflicts. Dinah at the center of the conflict. Dinah was left in the middle of the conflict, being the unwitting cause of a series of events that unfolded around her. Her position as a woman in a patriarchal society also influenced how things were handled and how decisions were made on her behalf. The brothers' response. The violent response of Dinah's brothers, Simeon and Levi, is a key element of the story. His deception and massacre of Shechem's men raise ethical questions about whether his action was proportionate and just, or whether it was a disproportionate and vengeful response. The forced marriage proposal. Shechem's offer of marriage to Dinah after the kidnapping raises questions about consent and mutual respect. Shechem's proposal can be seen as a way to justify his action or to regain his honor. Jacob's role. The reaction of Jacob, Dinah's father, is ambiguous. It is mentioned that he hoped that the two groups could coexist peacefully. Her lack of action in response to the kidnapping and her subsequent anger at her children's revenge reflect the complicated decisions that parents face in times of conflict. Long-term consequences. The massacre and revenge of Dinah's brothers influenced how other nations and groups in the region perceived Jacob's family. This could have affected their future relationships and safety. Reflections on morality and justice. The story of Dinah and Shechem raises enduring questions about when revenge is justifiable, whether manipulation is justified to achieve a moral goal, and how a peaceful resolution can be achieved in the midst of a cultural crisis. Hamor's role. Shechem's father, Hamor, played a significant role in the story. His willingness to negotiate and make alliances with Jacob's family raises questions about how leaders can influence the direction of a conflict. It also highlights the importance of political alliances in this context. The impact on family dynamics. Jacob's response to his son's revenge highlights the internal conflict he faced as the leader of his family. The massacre and violence change the family dynamic, as Jacob laments the possible reaction of the other nations in the region. The power of family unity. Dinah's story also highlights the importance of family unity and support. Although her brother's revenge was questionable, their response evidenced the strong connection between them and their determination to protect their sister and her honor. Reflection of social values of the era. The story of Dinah and Shechem reflects the values and social norms of the time. The idea of revenge as a way to maintain honorability was common in many ancient cultures, and this story sheds light on how such situations were handled in that context. Personal and family evolution. The story can also be interpreted as a narrative of growth and transformation. Despite his son's questionable actions, Jacob had to deal with the consequences and evolve as a leader and father. Furthermore, the story of Dinah and Shechem shows how circumstances often shape people's character and morals. Contemporary relevance. The story of Dinah and Shechem remains relevant today, as it touches on universal themes such as justice, revenge, consent, and cultural differences. It can serve as a starting point for discussing social and moral issues in today's world. Female perspectives and silenced voices. Dinah, as a female figure in the narrative, represents a voice that is often silenced in historical texts. Her story can be seen as a call to pay attention to women's experiences in times of conflict and cultural challenge. Dinah's role as victim and agent. Dinah, as a kidnapping victim and object of conflict, can also be seen as an agent in her own story. Although his voice is not directly represented in the biblical narrative, his actions and reactions influence the development of events and how the other characters respond to the situation. Consequences for future generations. The massacre of Shechem and his people not only had an immediate impact on Jacob's family, but also influenced future generations. The descendants of Levi, for example, played an important role in the history of Israel, highlighting how decisions made at critical moments can have long-term implications. The interpretation of justice. The story of Dinah and Shechem brings to the fore the concept of justice and how it can be interpreted differently depending on the perspective of each individual or group. For Simeon and Levi, justice involved avenging their sister's honor, while for others, it could be seen as a disproportionate response. The transition from revenge to reconciliation. Although the story does not directly address what happened after the massacre, some interpretations suggest that Dinah and Shechem's offspring were eventually reconciled. This possible evolution of the relationship raises the question of whether societies and individuals can move from revenge to reconciliation. The concept of honor in different cultures. The concept of honor plays a central role in this story. Both Dinah's family and Shechem sought to maintain their honor and reputation. This duality of perspectives illustrates how honor and dignity can be defined very differently in different cultures. If you like this content, don't forget to like, share and subscribe until next time.
Si les gustó este contenido, no olviden darle like, compartirlo y suscribirse para más reflexiones inspiradoras. Hasta la próxima.